Hey guys, welcome back to Channel, it's Frogs, and today we're going to be going over the new CRJ 550/700, basically the same thing. We're going to go through the cold and dark startup all the way up into the flight ready position. So we're running through all the checklists, originating, flow, we're going to go through the safety check, we're going to be before start, all that good stuff. Setting up the FMS, pretty much everything you need to know. And I've done a couple courses, a couple classes, time in an actual CRJ simulator. So hopefully I can share my real world knowledge with you and make your sim experience a little bit more enjoyable. Today we're going to be doing two parts. So the first part is going to be the real all the way through all the detail that you need to from cold and dark all the way to startup. And then the second part of it towards the end of the video is going to be, which is going to be linked kind of right above my head. That part is going to be the quick and dirty. What switches do you really need to flip? What do you need to do just to get the thing off the ground and start flying and messing around with it? So without further ado, let's get into the first part. All right, guys, I got my checklist and let's go and let's get into this. So first thing that you're going to want to do, your CRJ is most likely going to start with the battery already on. So what I like to do is I like to turn off the battery master just because technically it's not supposed to be on quite yet. One thing I do want to talk about real quick before we get into this is talk about your view bind. So I know if you're a real flight sim player, it's pretty obvious, but I'll just cycle through mine. So I have a cockpit view, which is this one, and then I have a kind of heads up cockpit view. Go ahead and got our autopilot panel. I got our FMS. I got our throttle quadrant, which is going to be important. And the important one with the throttle quadrant is that you have your buttons down here. You can access these buttons and you can see the panels here. So it's really, really important because you're going to be switching through these panels all the time. Okay, got my overhead panel. Also got the bottom foot pedestal. And then I got the iPad. This is actually really, really nice. I really like the way this AEROSOFT did this. So we're going to go through the safety check. So this check is going to be done kind of the first part of the day. So first thing is going to be the circuit breakers are going to be closed. So they're all behind you. They're not really modeled, so not really something we can do. We want to go ahead and turn the nose wheel steering off, which is going to be right down here. And then we're going to kind of it's kind of a flow up into the right here. So we're going to go ahead and go to our hydraulic pumps. So we'll go ahead and go to, still learning those binds, hydraulic panel. We're going to make sure all of the hydraulic pumps are off. We don't want anything to pressurize when we're on the ground. After that, we're going to go ahead and look down to our bottom panel. We're going to make sure the gear is down, which it is. We're going to go ahead and make sure our spoilers are set to 0. And then we're going to go ahead and make sure that our flaps are set to outside. So right now they are at 0, so you can just kind of, use your scroll wheel, your mouse wheel just to make sure they're there. You can also look outside just to make sure the flaps are up or not. They are. Perfect. That's what we want. Let's go ahead and go back inside. A couple other things we want to go is make sure that our radar is off. So radar is going to be right here. We want to make sure this is the opposition. We don't want to cook anybody in front of the radar, unfortunately. ADG manual release, we want it's right down here. We want that off or stowed. Make sure it hasn't been pressed. And then we can go ahead and turn on the battery master. So go ahead and go battery master on. And then we ideally want to complete the fire test. Unfortunately, that's not modeled to the best of my knowledge. And then we're going to go into the APU AC electrics. So right now we're going to start the APU in this originating check, or in the safety check. Originally, we're going to do it in the next checklist if it's not the first flight of the day. So right now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and click this power fuel button, hold it for a couple seconds, and then we should be able to look down at our panels here. And we should see APU invite, just disappeared, and APU SOV open. Okay, so that's what we want. Once that's open, or once we see that message, we can go ahead and click the start button. And then what we should see is that the APU power right here starts to go up. You'll see the EGT rising. You'll see APU door open. So that's going to be the air door open. RPM is going to start decreasing or increasing. And then we can go in here and technically these gens should be off by default. AEROSOFT kind of puts them on just to make it easy on you guys. But we should get, once this EGT kind of stabilizes, we'll click this master caution so it doesn't more us, and APU should be in the high 90s, if not a 100%. So it looks like this is going to get up to 100%. You can hear it start winding up, so that's perfect. Now what we can do is we can go to the top panel. You can see we have the green available, so we're ready for electricity. Go ahead and smack that big boy down right there. And then that's the APU started. It's pretty easy. Ideally, one thing that I think is a bug is that when you press the power field button, there should be lights that pop up, but it's not popping up for whatever reason. That's all right. And then of course my game decides to bug out just a little bit as we go down there. So now we're going to go down to the bottom pedestal, and we're just going to make sure our IRSs are in nav mode. Okay, so it takes about 30 to 90 seconds to align. After that, we're going to energize hydraulic 3. So first what we're going to do is we're going to click this button right here for the hydraulic panel. Then we'll go up to here and we're going to go pump 3A. We're going to go ahead and turn that on. Unfortunately, it doesn't go up to the top position. It only goes off in auto. So we're going to put it on auto today. And if we look down back at our panels here, we should see hydraulic 3A pump, 3000 PSI. That's perfect. Rudder, elevator, aileron, ground spoilers, nose wheel steering, and landing gear. All that good stuff. So that's all that we want. And then we'll go ahead and now we can go into the databases for the FMS. So if you want to actually check this, you can go ahead and make sure all these dates are good. You can go to the click next page. You can see your performance database, all that good stuff, model. So right now we're doing the CRJ 700, and we can do the position initialization. So to get that, you're going to want to either click here, index, or right there, position initialization. And then right now we are at KMSP. So we'll go ahead and put that KO code in. So KM, and then I still get confused, SP. And we'll go click that in the airport right now. You see latitude and longitude is populated. So go ahead and click that, drop it into our set position, and that should be all that we need. That's basically a safety check. Kind of a little bit out there. The originating check is much easier to remember because it's a really, really nice flow. So next, we're going to go ahead and go into the originating check. So this is what you do when the captain gets into the aircraft for the very first time, whether it's a turnaround flight or whether it's the first flight of the day. This is going to be either the first or second thing that they do. So what we're going to do is, for realism's sake, we'll go ahead and look to our left right here and check the oxygen here. Make sure we get that fuel flow indicator, or that flow indicator. So make sure that's all good. And then we're just gonna look here and we'll make sure nose wheel steering is still off. We'll go ahead and go up to the upper panel here, and we're just basically gonna go in a V shape here. So we're gonna go ahead, DC service, we're not gonna have on, we don't need anything. If you have ground power enabled, which if you want, you can connect that right there. Everything else we kind of want to be off and guarded, so the IDGs, make sure those are guarded, all that good stuff. APU gen obviously wants to be on. Make sure that these two gens are off for the time being. We're going to want to turn all of our lights off right now, and then, well, just for this, they should all be off. And then what we're going to want to do is just turn our nav on for the moment. Make sure all of our these are off, so it looks like our taxi light is on. We want that off. Fuel pump should be off, and then everything should be off. And then we're going to go ahead and get into our bleed. So we want to have just normal, all that good stuff right now. If you want, for passenger comfort, you can turn it to manual, APU, and then you can turn your packs on if you really want to keep the passengers comfy. What we can do actually is we can look down here and we can go to the ECS page, and we can see that right now only the left pack is getting our bleed air from the APU. So how we fix that is we want to go up here, and you can see that the blood packs are on. So if we turn them on or off, if we turn them on, we see it's fault. So all we need to do is open the isolation valve. You see that disappears. So now if we look back down, it's now getting both packs getting pressure, both green. All Gucci. All right, so then the next thing is, this is where if you didn't do the safety check, this is where you would start the APU. So you get the bleed set up, do the APU. We'll move down to the ignition, make sure that nothing is on at all. And then we want to make sure all the hydraulics are off except for that 3A pump, ELT's arm reset, and then we want to go up to the cabin pressurization. We want to make sure this is in manual altitude mode. Full decrease here for the rate, and then everything else is kind of off and guarded. That's going to be going to be the theme here. Next, we'll go ahead and do the AC. So like I said, I kind of did that a little bit out of order. So we can do packs on all the switches we want to make sure are off when guarded. So none of these manual ones here. Next thing we can do is the ice detector test. So if we look at our current status messages right here, so let's go back to, if we click the status page, you can look here and you can see that there just says park and brake on in green. So if we go back up, click ice detector test, and we look back down, we can see that it says ADS heat test okay. That means our icing protection is good. So then we can go back here, turn that off. After that, we want to make sure that the windshield heats are all in low, so it looks like that. We'll turn the probes off. That's not quite needed yet. We'll go ahead and make sure their emergency lights are in armed. Seats, passenger signs, you can probably turn off for the time being. After that, we're going to go back down to the main panel, and we're going to do our stall and GPWIS test. So the stall and GPWIS test, I'm not actually going to do the GPWIS test because it takes a long time. You're going to hear a bunch of audio, like you're going to hear stalls, or sorry, wind shear, wind shear, wind shear, terrain, pull up. You'll hear the 500, 1,000, all those good call outs. You go ahead and you just press and hold this button for a couple seconds, and it will go through that. We will do the stall test. Basically, click it up once to grab it, and then just hold it. You'll hear the stick shaker, and you can let it go. Ideally, when you're actually doing this check in the real airplane, you'd hold the stall switch, and then autopilot disconnect should break the stall shaker. And then you can also make sure that the stall protect switch is on. If you don't get that, oh, well, that's a bug. Well, anyway, this is the stick pusher, so this is off, so technically that shouldn't happen. Guess we found another bug. All right, then all we're going to do is we're going to keep moving to the left here. We're going to check our, if you can actually click this, move this down, we're going to check our display revisionary panel. So this is kind of like our backup panel, just to make sure if anything happens, we can always revert to another panel. So what we're going to do is we're just going to toggle it between ICAS and switch our PFDs and make sure everything else is good, and then we're going to leave it in norm. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to do the CVR test. Just hold it for about 5 seconds. If you see a green light, we're all good. And let go. There you go. There's that green light. All right, now we can go to the standby instruments. So this is kind of where we might want to verify and cross-check all of our information. So let's just say that the altimeter is going to be 29902. If you have the weather at this point, you can set that. Usually by this point you don't. But you want to check the primary instruments to make sure they're all working. All right, next thing we're going to do is, if I can click the right key, we're going to do our kind of main landing gear bay overheat switch stuff. So we'll go ahead and make sure anti-skid is armed. You'll see if we turn that off, it's going to say, hey, you don't have it armed, so we want to make sure that's on. We'll do the gear bay overheat. You should get a red caution message or warning message. And you should get a caution message when you turn this switch up. Okay, so those are our 2 tests. We'll also check the lamp test. That's basically turn on every single light that there is. So if you can look, I can't do it while I look up. Wish I could. But anyway, oh, actually, here we go. Yep, so it's going to turn on literally every switch. Just want to make sure that that's all good. That is, we can go ahead and turn that back down to 2, which will turn it off. And now we get into the thrust lever quadrant. And so now the thrust lever quadrant is pretty important because for whatever reason, the thrust levers spawn in the idle position, not the cutoff. So you're going to make sure you click these 2 things and pull them back. So we make sure they cut off, and you should see that there's N2 is shut off, so that's what we want. We're not wanting to start the engines. I don't know why they spawn like this, but just keep that aware. So you have to do this, otherwise the engines won't start. So that's something that I noticed right away. So next, we just want to make sure that the auto lift dumping is on auto right here. We want to make sure that these 2 pitch switches our disconnect switches are aligned with their axis, so roll. We want to make sure it's lined up right there. And then pitch is kind of up and down, so you think about it, you want to align it with that axis. Thrust reversers, want to make sure that these are on. I'm actually going to turn those off, and that's because from my control setup, if I put 0 thrust, it actually engages thrust reversers, so I actually put these on takeoff, so that's just a personal thing for my sim. After that, we're pretty much done with the throttle quadrant. We'll move down to the nav comm, and we're going to do our TCAS test. So go ahead and click this button right here where it says TCAS. We're going to want auto, on, relative, and then a norm. Those are the settings you're going to have, and then we want to go ahead and do the test. We should see we should see the TA. So the TCAS advisory. So you should see red. I'll do it one more time. You heard TCAS system test okay. You'll see populated for traffic alerts, all that kind of stuff. Traffic right there. And you'll hear that, and you should be good. After that, like I said, make sure our flaps are again 0. We'll continue to move down here to our backup tuning unit. So that's this one. We want to make sure flaps tune inhibit is in the up position. We'll go ahead and make sure this one's on the standby right here. And then we'll move down to our stab trim. So stab trim, we want to make sure these are all pressed in. If you see that if it says in-op, that means in-op. We want that off, so or we want it engaged, so not in-op. We'll go ahead and make sure that these are all normal. These are all still in nav. And then we'll kind of continue to go here. Yaw damper is right here. Same thing for that. Unfortunately, the PA doesn't work. Usually what we do is we check the PA. You should hear that a nice little ring. It doesn't work. Neither does the chime, unfortunately. Call an emergency. You can press those to check if you'd really so like. But other than that, not really a big thing. And then we'll have our source select panel. Make sure these are all on the norm as well. And then we'll go ahead and make sure ADG is stowed. You can also look at the FireX. Make sure that these are all still flush and nothing else is work. And that's pretty much about it for the originating check. One note that you can do if you so like, you can do the TCAS test and set up the other side. I usually fly single pilot, so that's kind of what I'm focusing on. But otherwise, you'll kind of do the same setup and test as before. Alright guys, so this is going to be the before start checklist. So this is going to happen when the captain kind of gets in and the first officer are all kind of sitting together. We're all getting ready. The doors maybe start to close. Passengers are all good and loaded, and we're getting our clearance, getting the aircraft set up for the actual flight. So first thing we're going to do is we can go ahead and get our passenger signs. We'll go ahead and turn those on. So that's going to be right here. You can turn the seatbelt and smoking. Well, I guess not seatbelt. You just turn the smoking sign on. Next thing we're going to do is set our landing elevation. So this is the really sucky part. It goes up by 200 feet, I believe, increments. So you go ahead and scroll this wheel, and then you'll have to look at it down here. So right now it's at 260. So I think it's either 20 or 100. I can't remember what the sim does. Okay, so it's 20 feet. 20 feet. So I'm just going to leave it at 280. Set it to whatever your landing field elevation is going to be. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and set all our altimeters. So we're going to go ahead and go to our left panel here. So we set our altimeters right here. So this is going to be the barrel. So right now by default it's in millibars, so we don't want that. We're going to click this button. We want inches of mercury, and then I'm just going to say, let's say that it's 29080. So we'll set that in this one. We'll set that in the standby right there, and we should be good. All right, after that, we're going to go ahead and make sure again that our anti-skid is on. That's a really important one. After that, we're going ahead and go work on our FMS a little bit. So FMS is what we do is we use it called the J pattern. So start with the flight plan here. We kind of go to departures and arrivals, legs, performance, and then MFD menu. So it's kind of like this weird J, as you could say. We just call it the J pattern, makes it easy to remember. So we're going to start with our flight plan. So I'm just going to make one up. Obviously, if you have SimBrief or something like that, or you have a selected route, you can put that in. So let's just say right now we're at KMSP. So we'll put that in our origin first, and then we'll go ahead and put, let's say that we're going to Fargo. So we're going to say KFAR. That's the OK code for that one. We put these two in first. So don't put anything else next, because next page, then we're going to put in our route. So let's just say I'm going to go via the AXN VOR. Okay, so if you remember, direct waypoints here, if we want to use a Victor Airway or some kind of airway route, put that in this side. So we'll go AXN and then we'll go FAR. Just a nice two simple route. After that, we're going to go ahead and in the real plane, we don't want to execute it until we've confirmed it with our first officer, but right now, since I don't have our first officer, we're just going to confirm it. So we'll go ahead and click execute right there. And you can see that we get a line populated on here. If it's dotted, that means it's not executed yet, but it's planned. And then when you click execute, we'll go ahead and make a solid line. Okay, so next part we're going to do is we're going to go departures and arrivals. So let's say that we're going to do runway 22. I'm not going to pick a departure or a SID, so you can click that right there. You can see that dotted line, so that's one of the planned routes. So you go ahead and click execute. Actually, you know what we will do? We'll do, this may not work, but we're just going to go ahead and pick a random departure because I'm going to show you how to check your routes. Okay, so we'll go ahead and click that, execute. It looks all good. Departures, arrivals. What I recommend is you don't set an arrival yet. You just set the departure. So that's what I have selected here. At least I think I did. Yep, yeah, looks like that's what we had. And then we'll go to the legs page. All right, so when we click the legs page, this is where we're going to look at all of our legs. So we want to go ahead and change our format page to the north up page. And now what we can do is you kind of angle your camera, use these two buttons right here, and we're going to, so we'll say not allowed, but that's going to be okay. We're going to cycle through all of our points. So you should be looking on whatever you have written down for your route. Cycle through all your points. So we have NU, DXN, or DWN, DWN20, ABR, and then you can see that we don't have the rest of my route. So that's it. And now we have a discontinuity. So if you don't know, discontinuity is basically you have, right now this is the end of our SID or whatever SID we did, and it doesn't know how to get to our route. So our route, you remember our first point that we put in was the AXN VOR. So what we have to do is we'll just click the AXN, and then since there's two discontinuities, we'll just go ahead and put it up there. And you can see that now there's no discontinuity. And so we go ABR, AXN, and then Fargo. Okay, so real quick, so make sure you execute it. So I was playing that for a minute. So execute, make sure you change that, and then you can go back to your north up screen, and now we can see all of our routes, waypoints, so we can go ahead and check. So NU, DXN, there's ADR, and then we can see AXN, and then Fargo. So this isn't a real route, so I just made it up. So don't get too stressed about that. All right, after that, then we're gonna go ahead and go back down to this page here, and so I'm going to clear that message away. And then we're going to go down to our performance. So we're going to go ahead and go down to our performance initialization first. And we see a bunch of setup stuff we have to do. Well, good news is that if you have SimBrief, you can just do this all manually. But AEROSOFT is really, really nice, and this is the way I'm going to show you to do it, is use the iPad. So you just got to click on the iPad screen to start warming it up. And you know what, let me just change the time just a little bit. There we go, so you can see the screen. So it has your checklist right here, so if you want to follow along, my checklists aren't exactly, they're missing a couple things, or these checklists are missing a couple things that my checklists don't. But go ahead and go to performance. So what you can do is, it's really, really nice. You don't even have to set the payload and stuff up before. You can set however many passengers, cargo, aft cargo, fuel, all that stuff up. And you can actually set payload in simulator, and it's going to change your aircraft to whatever you have set in here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to leave all this stuff, and we're just going to say copy performance initialization data to FMS. Okay, so just go ahead and click that. Perfect. While we're here, we can see our weight and balance, so make sure that we're within, so right now we're below our maximum landing weight, which is good. And then we can select our flaps, takeoff speed. So runway conditions, so we'll do a flaps 8 takeoff. And then nice little button, click set all. Don't set your landing speeds yet. That should be done in the air, or kind of when you're on approach. So we'll set all of those. And if we look on our screen right here, we can see V target, V2, VR, and V1 all set. Okay. So once we have that, you can see that all of our stuff is now populated. The only thing we have to do is enter in our cruise altitude. So I'm just going to pick 5,000. Doesn't really matter what you put here. You put flight level 230 or just 23,000 feet. Spoiler's a little bit wonky sometimes, so flight level 230, perfect. All right, and then we're going to go ahead and we can execute that. Okay, as you see a little execute, and then our performance data should be filled in. All right, so now what we're going to do is we want to make sure that we're on this page so you can see our radar off, all of this lovely stuff up here, and we're on our map page. And we're going to go ahead and click Finish RJ Pattern Out with MFD menu. All right, so the acronym that us pilots like to use for this, for what we need is High SAM, so High S, A, and then M. Okay. And then you can see that we have a side left or right, so you can customize this however you want. If you're doing a low flight, for whatever reason, you can do low nav aids, intersections, airports, NDBs, ETAs, all that good stuff. One of the more important ones is you make sure you want to have VNav on at least on one of your screens. So that's going to give you your vertical navigation, so descents, all that good stuff. And then I'm going to go ahead and switch up to the right side. And you can see now I'm editing this one. So we'll go high SAM. And then let's go ahead and we'll keep airports in. Now on this one, you want to just set it to on, so now we can see a little bit different information on us. So you can kind of use both screens. All right, so now we're on the clear to start checklist to the line. And so this is kind of when you're talking about pushback. So basically kind of like this is when you're cleared to push, you can start doing this checklist. So we're going to make sure that our APU is on. So we'll go ahead and go up. So just verify APU is on, and we got our gens. Perfect. We're going to make sure our takeoff data is set. So that's going to be our V speeds. So we're going to go ahead and go to here, make sure our takeoff data is set. So we have VT, V2, VR, and V1. All these blue things set right here. Make sure those are all set. We got yaw dampener, all good. And we're going to go ahead and before we give the permission to push back, we're going to go ahead and make sure that all of our doors are closed. So it's really nice because we can go ahead and just click doors. If it's green, it's shut. If it's yellow, it's not shut. And then if it's red, that means it's unsafe. So go ahead and do that. Just make sure that's all good. Then we can go up to our top panel. Go ahead and turn our beacon on because we're about to get moving. This point where we turn our fuel pumps on. And then we're going to kind of do a gravity crossflow check. So you go ahead and go click this on, and then we're going to see an ICAS message pop up. So let's go ahead and go back to the stat page. You'll see it says gravity X-flow open. Perfect. That's what we want. And we'll go ahead and turn that off. All right, after that, we're going to go ahead and turn all the hydraulic pumps on. Just like that, and it still bugs me that this one doesn't go to on. But anyway, turn all the hydraulic pumps on, and I think we're actually going to turn them to auto here. And we heard that ICAS message, perfect. And then we'll go ahead and make sure our parking brake is on. So we'll go ahead and go down to our lower pedestal, parking brake. If it's up and pulled, that's all good. And at this point, we're clear to push back. So we'll go ahead and start our pushback. All right, now let's say that we've done our pushback here and we're ready to do the clear to start checklist below the line. So we're going to go ahead and this is where we're going to start our engine start. So we're going to go up to our top panel. We're going to go ahead and turn off of our packs. And then now we're going to set up configure our aircraft for the start. So I like to do mine manual. So we're going to go ahead and close the isolation valve. We're going to go bleed source is going to be the APU. And if we look on the ICAS page here, so we'll go ahead and go to ECS here. You can see that right now we have the APU on, and it's providing bleed air, 45 psi right now, and it's being the valve right here is closed. So when we press the start button, this will open and the engine will start warming up. So what we'll do is now we'll go ahead and we're ready to start the engine. So things that we're going to be looking for on this one. So we're going to be looking for N2 oil pressure, N1, then fuel flow, and then we'll see an EGT rise, and we'll see starter light off, and then we'll look for a starter cutout. And that'll all be kind of detailed on this ICAS page. So what we're going to do is we're going to hold this for a couple seconds. So 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. You'll see the start button illuminate. We start looking here, so we seeing N2 rise, oil pressure starting to rise. We also have N1. Once this gets to 20% N2, we'll go ahead and get this out of the cutoff position. And then we should see fuel flow and light off. So there's 20%, we'll pop that up. And it can be a little difficult sometimes. So there you go, now we got fuel flow. And we're just looking for light off. There we go. There's the light off. Our EGT starts to rise. It's going to start rising real quickly now. Perfect. And then all we're doing now is we're looking for start a cutout. So we'll go ahead and it's good practice kind of just let the engine stabilize before you start the next one. Alright, so it looks like it's about stabilized, so now we can go ahead and start the next one. So it's going to be basically the same process, except now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and open the isolation valve, and we're going to go ahead and we can keep the APU as a bleed source, it doesn't really matter. You can see the isolation valve is now open, and we are able to provide stuff from the left engine, or correction, to the right engine. So we're going to do the same exact process here, so we're going to go ahead, right engine, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. Starter is light up. We're going to look for N2, looking for N1 is starting to turn. We have oil pressure starting to flow. I'm going to unlock this right here and just get ready to push it up to the idle position. There's 20% N2, so we'll go ahead and put that to cutoff. We'll see we have fuel flow, we have N2, N1 rising. Light should have a light off pretty soon here. There's light off, and ideally this should be running. This should stay until the starter cutout. And unfortunately, I don't think that's modeled, but that could be an update in the future. This engine is full Digital Authority engine control, so it's fully FADEC equipped. So really, we shouldn't have any issues. All right, you can see that we have everything, all of our other ICAS messages, so a lot of stuff was controlled by the right engine. So all we have to do is the gens off, and that's going to be in our next checklist. All right, so the everything has stabilized. Okay, so everything is stabilized, so now we'll go ahead and go to the after start to the line. So we're just going to go ahead and go up to our panel up here. We're going to go ahead and click our gens on. And we can turn the APU generator off for safety. You can just kind of leave it on. It's up to you. Usually what we do is on the 10,000 foot check, that's when we'll turn the APU off. If you feel like turning the APU off right now, you can, whether or not you play with emergency situations or not. Anyway, so after that, we're going to go ahead and change all of our bleeds and everything. So isolation valve, we'll go ahead and close. Bleed source we'll put back to both engines and normal and auto. So all that stuff is just going to be kind of the way that it should have been. Go ahead and turn on the packs again. And then that should kind of be about it. We'll go ahead and now we can check our N2 and our ITT rise when we go ahead and turn our anti-ice on. So if we look at our stuff right now, we can see that it's hovering at about 60 and about 505. So let's go ahead and turn our wing and cowl anti-ice on, and we should see an N2 and ITT rise. Okay, you also see a little bit N1. Engines have to work a little bit harder. It's all good, so we'll turn that off. We also can turn our probes on, and then our electrics should pretty much all be good right now. So we got those gens on, everything's all good. At this point, you can arm your thrust reversers. So this is just going to be kind of like, think of this as like you're going to before almost just before your taxi. So you can put your thrust reversers on. Like I said, I'm keeping mine off because my simulator doesn't like it. And then we're going to go ahead and just make sure all of our flight instruments are set up. So this is where we're going to make sure we plug in our altimeters, we set up our autopilot, all that good stuff. So standard when I use it is if we go to the panel here, We'll see all of our selections appear right here. So we kind of usually set our speed to about 200 knots. That's a good kind of initial climb out speed. You could set it, the other airspeed you could set it to is VT. That's another really common one. So this is where I kind of like to set up my autopilot. It's up to you how you like to do it, but I like to turn the flight director. You can bug your runway heading. So let's say our runway heading is 025, so we'll turn heading mode on. We can set our initial altitude, so we'll get our clearance. So let's say that it's, I didn't want to zoom out. Let's say that it's 5,000 feet. So I'm setting 5,000 feet right here. So we set 5,000 feet. We can do altitude select if you want, or you can do vertical speed, up to you. And then that's pretty much about it. Don't hit autopilot engage yet, because obviously we're not going to engage the autopilot. But that should kind of be about it. You can also click speed if you want. You can click that climb, but that's not something that we usually put on right away. All right, after that, last thing, you just want to make sure your altimeter is set, so 2980, 2980, and then I'm not going to set my co-pilots, but, the co-pilot would set that one. And then last thing is just want to make sure that our FMS is all set up and ready to go. So in the aircraft, we want to make sure that we're on the legs page, because that's where we're going to see most of our information, so we're going to go ahead and keep it there. And then basically your taxi checklist is going to be the after start checklist below the line. And what we're going to do is we're going to set whatever flap setting. So I'm going to set it to 8 degrees. We can look on our ICAS page to see what it's indicating. Okay. And we'll go ahead and do a flight control text. So now this is actually the really cool one. I'll grab my controller for this one here. And we can go ahead and click the flight control switch, which is down here on bottom left. And we get a couple things to check here. So we make sure our trim's neutral. So they're going to be all in the green. So it should all be in the green. If they're outside of the green, we know that's not good. And we can do a little flight control check. So you can see I'm moving around my flight controls. You can see that all the spoilers are going, rudder, elevator, all that kind of stuff. So there's the rudder. And then we can see that the flaps are indicating 8. So that's all the checks for that one. And then last thing that we can do is we can finally arm the nose wheel steering. So let's go ahead and go back to our left here and turn on nose wheel steering. And that's all good. So at this point, we're ready to taxi, so we'll go ahead and taxi out to the runway. After that, we're going to get it and do our before takeoff checklist to the line. So before takeoff checklist to the line is we're going to head and going to make sure, we're going to go back to our status page here. We're going to check our brake temp. I'm going to make sure that they're below 6, so this is a first start. Shouldn't really be an issue. We're going to go ahead and check our fuel crossover, our manual fuel crossover. So go up to the top here. Click this one here, and we should see an ICAS message that says manual crossflow. That's all good. And then we'll go ahead and then do our anti-ice. So depending on what you guys have said in your takeoff briefing, which will kind of be done at the end of the after start checklist, you can go ahead and do your wing ice cal if that's all needed, but be aware that your takeoff performance will be degraded if you have those on during takeoff. But if you're flying under like weather, snow, all that good stuff, rain, icing conditions, then you're going to have them on. Okay, after we do anti-ice, we're going to do radar and terrain on, so that's going to be on the bottom pedestal here. And we're going to ahead and go to change this to our weather here. And then if you have terrain, then you can go ahead and select that as well. That's the before takeoff checklist to the line. So that's kind of when you pull up short of the runway. When you get cleared for takeoff, then you're going to go ahead and do the before takeoff checklist below the line. You're going to go up here first. You're going to turn on all your lights. So you should have the taxi light on, strobe, all that good stuff. You're going to notify the attendant. So most people do that by the seatbelt. And then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to check our CAS messages. So ideally, if we have done everything right, then there should be no caution, no warning message, and there should be no green message. Right now we have the parking brake on because obviously I'm not taxiing, but that should be off. You'll see seatbelts, all that good stuff. And then if you've checked it, then you can go ahead and click, if both of you agree everything that's good, you can go ahead and click the stat button and clear those messages. So that's pretty much it for the entire start. The last thing I just want to show you is how to turn off the APU for when you get in flight. So APU is really easy. Just click, basically do it in the reverse order. So you click this button off, and then you should see APU SOV open. Kind of once this gets down to about 50%, then you can go ahead and click the power fuel button, and that'll shut off all the power and fuel to the APU. So we can go ahead and click that one, and you see everything disappeared, and then the APU door should close. You'll see that in the bottom right here. After that, we should see APU SOV closed, and we're basically all good. And you can see we basically have no ICAS messages except for that parking brake on, and we're all started and ready to go. So that is how you start up the CRJ. If you have any questions or you'd like to see more parts, just let me know. I am going to do the quick startup. I'm going to reset my sim and do the quick startup right after this. So if you want to see what the quick startup is, hang around for a second. Hey guys, Editing Froggy here. Just wanted to be sure that if you liked this video, please leave a comment and leave a like on the video. Subscribe if you want more content. I'm thinking about putting in a couple extra guides. I'm thinking about releasing the checklist that I've created myself. So if you're interested in that, please leave a comment. And then I'm also interested in seeing if you want me to do a video on which of these items are done by the captain and which of the items are done by the FO if you guys want to do them as a crew. So let me know in the comments and enjoy the quick start. All right, guys, welcome you impatient folk. We're going to do a quick and dirty how to get the CRJ started up in the fastest amount possible, not following any checklist, just flipping switches and turning crap on. So we're just going to go in this order. Nose wheel steering, we're going to go ahead and turn on. So that's going to be in this bottom corner right here. So we're going to make sure that that's armed so we can actually steer the plane. Go ahead and go up. We'll go battery master on. And we'll go ahead and make sure all of our gens are on. You can go ahead and turn all of your lights on if you'd like. Kind of up to you on that one. Turn that taxi light off. Fuel pumps will go ahead and turn on. And then we'll go ahead and do our bleed. So everything is going to be in the auto situation. We'll go ahead and start our APU. So we'll click that first button. Wait till you see APU and byte disappear. There we go. And you can go ahead and click the start button. See the APU start warming up here. Click that master caution off. And then while that starts up, we can go ahead and actually switch to the hydraulic page. So that's going to be our next page that we're going to look at. And that's going to be, I know the time's a little bit up. Let me just set that back for a little bit. So we're going to go with hydraulic page. See, none of it's pressurized. We're going to go back up to the top here. Turn all of our pumps on. So unfortunately, that pump doesn't go up to auto, so it's kind of like that weird oddball one, so you got to know. Here, the APU started up. We want all hydraulic pumps on. Arm reset. Cabin rate, full decrease. If you want to set your cabin altitude right here. So that's going to, you turn this knob right here. It's going to change. I'll go ahead and click our status page here. It's going to change this number right here. So set that to whatever your landing elevation needs to be. We'll go ahead and go up. We'll go ahead and turn our packs off. We'll turn our probes. Oh, that's the anti-ice. We'll go ahead and turn our probes on. So those should already be on. Makes it all good. And then you can turn your passenger seats, landing lights, all that good stuff if you want on. Next, we're going to go down to the FMS. So we're going to do our position initialization. You can just click that key here, or you can go to index position initialization. Right now we're at KMSP. So you'll put whatever ICAO code in from where you're at, right there. Copy that, put that in there. So by clicking the right land select key, put set position in right there. And we'll go ahead and go to our next page. Just make sure everything, our GPS is working. After that, we're going to go ahead and click flight plan. So we should be able to go back to our index position initialization. You can just copy, and it's not going to let me do that. Usually you would. So we'll just type in KMSP again. Gotta love my shortcuts. KMSP, and we're going to go to, I'm going to use this somewhat similar to what I used the other day. So we'll go KFAR. Only put those two things in there. Go ahead and go to your next page, and we'll go your route of flight. So AXN So if you're going direct to a waypoint, that's what you want to put that here. If you're going to on a Victor Airway, you want to go ahead and put that here, and then make sure you select your on and your off point for that Victor Airway. So we'll do Fargo as well. Just like that. Next, we're going to go departures and arrivals. So we'll do the D18 again, and off of runway 17. We'll do the ABR transition. Sounds good. And then once that's all good, we can go ahead and select our north up page. Go ahead and click execute. You'll see that that this populates now. Now we'll go to our legs page. Our legs page. Now we can step through. It's going to say not allowed, but that's fine. You can see it's moving right here. And we're going to step through all of our waypoints. And you can see that we have like a kind of like jumps. So if we go all of DXN, ABR, and then it stops, and then we get to MSP, and then it goes to AXN and Fargo. So we know we have some kind of discontinuity. So what we'll go ahead and do is go to that next page here. We can see that we have discontinuity. So we want to fix that by clicking AXN or whatever one you have on the bottom. Put that up there. You can see that now we're waypoint to waypoint to waypoint, which is what we want. Click that and execute. Now if you go back to this page here, we can see that we have lines everywhere. Yay! All right, after we've all checked that, we'll go ahead and go to performance. So in performance initialization, right now, what we do, make it easy. You can use SimBrief if you want, but we'll go ahead and just go to the iPad. Just click on it once to get it started up. Here's all your checklists. I'm going to go to performance, and I explained this in the first section here, but we can actually, you don't actually have to set anything up the first time that you put anything in the CRJ, or you load it up. You don't have to set your weights, anything. You can set it all up in here, and then you just set, hey, click set payload in simulator. It'll reconfigure your sim. But what we're going to do is we're going to click copy performance initialization data FMS, and that's going to preload everything that we set in here right on the FMS. Next we're going to do is we're going to set our takeoff, flaps 8, flaps 20, and then it's going to automatically kind of calculate our, based on our weight, our performance, it's going to calculate our V speeds. Click set all. Don't set your landing speeds yet. That's what you're going to do when you're kind of en route to approach. Go back to our FMS. You can see that we have everything pretty much set up, just auto-populated. Next thing we can do is put in our cruise altitude, so I'll say 23,000 feet for me. That's all good. Click the next page if you want to enter your wind for your cruise climb descent, all that stuff. One thing you might want to do is estimated time of departure. So I didn't say this on the other one, so let's say just 1500. And we go ahead and click execute. After that, we're going to finish our little J pattern here by going down to MFD menu. You can set this up. So this is going to set up your map page here. So we'll go ahead and click to this. And you can see, like, for example, if I click airports off, it's going to delete the airports from the map. So what we like to do in the CRJ world is we like to do high SAM. So HISAM, and then click off airports. We also want to make sure VNAV is turned on, and that's going to give you this information up here. And then you can also set the right hand screen by clicking this side here. We'll do high SAM, and then we'll also do airports. And we want to turn this one just to on, so this is going to give us a little bit different information, as you can see. Once we get up to the air, you'll see some VNAV information, which is going to be great. All right, after we get all of that set up, we're going to go down to the throttle quadrant. So this is really important for the CRJ, and these actually start in, if you look here, these actually start in the idle position, and so the engines won't start like that. So we need to go ahead and make sure these got cut off. So just pop both these selectors. See that all gets down. We'll make sure thrust reverser switch is on. Ground lift dumping is on auto, so those are going to be your spoilers and thrust reversers. If you're going to play with TCAS, go ahead and click TCAS. You want auto, on, norm, relative. If you want to go through the test, you can click the test. We're going to keep going down here, and we're going to make sure that our backup RTU is on standby. Stab, mock trims, all engaged. If you see inop here, then that means it's off. Make sure that these are in nav mode, so our IRS is going to finish aligning. They should spawn in that by default. Make sure yaw dampener is engaged, and that's pretty much it for that one. after that, we're pretty much ready to start the engines. Last thing we want to do is make sure this is down to weather. So this is going to be your weather radar. All right, then we're going to head and we'll start. We can ready start our engines. So we're going to go ahead and click manual to start. We'll start the left engine first. So we'll set the bleed source to the APU. Make sure that our isolation valve is closed. And then what we'll go ahead and do is we can start the engine. So we're going to go to our left engine start, hold it for 3 Mississippi, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. Engine starts to go on. All we're looking for is we're looking for 20% N2. Once that is hit 20% N2, then we can put our our throttles back into the idle position instead of the shut off. There's 20%. Go ahead and put that in. Looks like we're getting some fuel flow. N2, and we should see light off here in just a second. N1's rising. And there's light off. There we go. So usually we're just going to want to wait for the engine to stabilize. So by default, it should stabilize around 60% N2 or so. So that's what we're looking for. Alright, so that's probably about stable. So now what we'll go ahead and do is bleed should be all the same. We'll just start our right engine, except we're going to head and go and click the isolation valve to open. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. There we go. Engine start. Look for 20% N2. And we'll go ahead and do the same thing, get that fuel started. There's 20%. Go and put that thrust lever to idle. Looking for the same thing, fuel flow, oil pressure. We have N1 rotation, N2 rotation. We should see the light off here momentarily. There we go, there's light off. So now your engines are up and starting. Go ahead and call for push, all that good stuff. We can actually go back to our air conditioning panel. We can turn on our packs. And then if you like, you can turn off the APU. Usually we won't turn off the APU until we're like 10,000 feet. But I'll show you how to do it just so you know. So we'll go ahead and go select our bleeds back to auto. Isolation valve will go ahead and close. Bleed source both engines. All you have to do is click this one. And then once you see the N2, the RPM right here drop below about 50%, you can go ahead and drop that. Or you can go ahead and click the power fuel button. When you click power fuel, you should see APU SOV open shut off. So there's 50%. Go ahead and click that button. The APU door closed, the gauge has disappeared, and we have pretty much no ICAS messages. So that's exactly what we want. All right. So that's pretty much about it. You can set your autopilot now if you so choose. You go heading, nav, speed, all that good stuff. Make sure you turn your flight directors on. You can change your approach modes, all that good stuff. You set your altimeters, so you're going to set your standby by this knob right here. And then we're going to go ahead and go to our left panel, if I can get over there. Go ahead and minimize our yoke right here. And then you can set all of your barometric with this one right here. It's by default, it's going to start in millibars. So go ahead and click this button. You can change it to inches of mercury if you're in the United States. But we're just going to say 3008 right there. And that's pretty much it. Don't forget to set your flaps, and you just started the CRJ. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys have any questions or any suggestions you'd like to see the rest of the checklist for descent crews or any operations like ILS, anything like that, please let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a great day, and thanks for coming.